Morning everyone! So this is the second of 4 parts of super simple crafting. This is taking you back to the basics. It's an old school video. It's very simple way to create a very cool card with not a lot of product. So I'm using the Stampin' Bella Oddball Frankenstein set today, and I've got a piece of Nina Solar White, or White Crest, I can't remember which white it is, that measures 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to score it at 4 1/4, and this will create our card base. This is the £110 card, so it's a heavyweight cardstock, which is nice for card bases. I always find that that's something that needs to be, you know, you need a good weight for your card base, otherwise it tends to want to, if it's if it's not a heavyweight cardstock, it'll tend to want to do that when it's trying to stand up. So so there's our card base. I then have some Stampin' Up, oh, which one's this? Mossy Meadow cardstock, that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I've just embossed it with a dry, you know, an embossing folder. And this is the Halloween one from Tim Holtz from years and years ago, and it's basically got all these words like spooky, trick or treat, haunted, Halloween, 31, you know, all that sort of thing. And what I did was, when I put the card in to emboss it, I actually turned the card slightly, so when it embosses it looks like the writing's going at an angle across the card rather than being straight, if that makes sense. So that's the card panel that we're going to use to stick it together. And then I have a rectangle, stitched rectangle from Lawn Fawn that I've just used on some, I think this is Whisper White cardstock. I've even got some washi tape still on the back. So this was an offcut that I used, and I managed to, I used some washi tape just to hold it in place so that I could actually cut that out, because I had like a tiny piece of white cardstock and I wanted to use it without wasting it. I thought it's about the right size. So anyway, so there's a stitched rectangle. You don't need to have the stitching, so you don't need to have a die for that. You can just cut a block out and that's fine, because again, this is supposed to be simple, right? So I have the 2 stamps here. I'm going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp the what am I trying to say, the sentiment and the image. So I'm just going to, this the sentiment itself it's wonky anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's not lining up completely straight. So I'm just going to do my best, and I'm just popping it right at the bottom here, just so that it's on there. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some post-it tape, or am I might eyeball it because what I won't use post-it tape because that will still be wet. So I am just going to use, this is just the plastic sheeting that the stamp comes on. I'm just going to carefully tape this down, so I'm just going to line that up there just to hold that piece in place, and then I'm going to do the same with this. It'll make sense in a second. Oh, and I need to go over the actual sentiment, and I'm doing it sort of like close-ish to the top of this sentiment, and then I'm going to stamp my ink my stamp up. So I've got him there, but I just want to, I don't need him going all the way down really. Let's see if this works, guys. Right, so I'm just going to stamp him somewhat in the middle. There you go. I think that's going to work quite well. So let me get that out. So there's a bit on there, the plastic, but that's fine. Not a problem. I can get that off in a minute. And then I've got him just hanging out like so. So he looks like he's legless, but you know, whatever. It's Halloween, right? Yeah. If I'd had the you know, I could have had it slightly lower so that the legs were almost closer to the sentiment, but that's fine. It's not an issue. So again, very simple. I'm going to keep it monochromatic, and I'm going to let this dry because it's VersaFine ink, so it does take a little while to dry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ink the edges of, with some vintage photo, ink the edges of my card, because I think everything needs vintage photo. I do sound like a stuck record, but yeah, that's okay. Alright, so that's that. And then I'm also going to ink the edge of this piece. And some of the words will, the embossed words or the embossed image will pick up the ink as well, which is very cool. I always find that effect like it just lifts the entire thing. But this doesn't have to be words. Use whatever embossing folder you've got. Use a stencil if you've got a stencil. You don't have to use an embossing folder. I just happened to think that that was the thing to do. So that's going to go on there. In fact, I'm going to stick this down now. Let me just clean this, just so that there isn't any extra ink that's going to go on there, because we don't want that, do we? No. So I'm using some wet adhesive today, but you can you can use a dry adhesive. Just make sure that you put enough of it on, because when you emboss, it does warp the paper a bit. So it's just to stop it sort of curling up on the edges and things like that. So if you just make sure you've got enough of it on there, you should be fine. And your paper will shrink slightly when you emboss it, because of what it's doing to the paper. So that's the base. And then this, I don't know if this is dry enough yet. In fact, I can see it's not, so I'm just going to do this. Sort of worked. Right, we're going for it. Right, so more vintage distressing, vintage photo, sorry. And I'm just going to go around the edges. Yeah, it's not dry. I've just smudged him. But that's fine. Just going a bit more careful. If I had more time, I would let that dry a bit more, but actually being a Halloween-y kind of card, the little bit of smudging is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it kind of adds to it, but it's up to you. If you want to leave it to dry properly, or set it, you know, use your heat tool to heat set it, you can do that too. That, you know, that would work fine. There we go. Let's get rid of this. And then I'm just going to pop these up with some foam dots. Again, 10 million of them. I won't let you sit through that. Right, so 50,000 foam dot things. Right, I'm just going to pop this on here. Sort of straight. And there you go. This is the second of, I think I said 4 that I'm going to do. Super simple, but look, it looks cute. So, shop your stash. Embossing folders, stencils, bit of ink, Super simple. Same ink used all the way through, except obviously the black for the main image. No colouring, keeping it simple, guys. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more from me. And I will see you next time, guys. Happy Halloween!